The politics. That is exactly what is going on the Ukrainian-Polish border, not economy, politics. See why in our episode. Good afternoon, Henry Keane is here for you in the UATV English studio in another attempt to bring our truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Polish farmers continue to block 6 out of 9 checkpoints on the border with Ukraine. The participants of the campaign threatened to block the movement of passenger transport as well, including buses and trains. The border blockade significantly delays and complicates deliveries to Ukraine, primarily of humanitarian perishable goods and fuel, undermining Ukraine's stability and defense capability. A country in war, just by the way. Well, some might think Poles want to cause us Ukrainians as much damage as possible. Well, of course not. That is not the case. I was crossing the Polish border to Ukraine in the first week of this war. I've seen those endless tents with food, warm clothes, medical help, you name it. Poles were there for us and they have not gone anywhere. Poles are still there for us, Ukrainians. It is someone else who's blocking the way to Ukrainian victory. Well, I have no questions for the Polish authorities. Ukrainian farmers may have questioned, though, because yesterday this happened. This, as you can see, are not Poles. Again, these are Polish-Russian helpers dumping our Ukrainian grain right on the railway. This is not only a crime, because after all, the grain did not belong to them, but to us. But it is also a religious sin, which is quite unnatural and unusual for Catholic Poland. But very natural for Russians. Some of these guys openly support Putin. Like this guy, for example, and the reading says, Putin, please come and bring Ukraine, Brussels, in our state to order. Well, tell me, what do you see? Because when I look at this photo, and I see no Polish nation, no Poles at all. Poles would never welcome a Soviet Tsar, so he can, again, murder, again, torture, and again, enslave. Poles hate Soviets. Hate Russian aggressive waves. Poles are for Poland and never will welcome a Russian intruder and his horrific repressive order that costed Poland hundreds of thousands of Polish lives. I see no such Poles in this photo. What I see is Russian. All of it, Russian agents, Russian money, Russian influence in politics and attempt to influence us, Ukrainians, on the battlefield. I see Russian enemy and not a Polish friend here on the photo. I see Russian who can clearly understand where to hit at. Supplies and logistics are of utmost importance during the war. And Russian is using that to weaken Ukraine, raising a flag of the USSR, calling on Putin to curb Ukraine, Brussels, and the Polish government, really. Not a Polish way for sure. So all the crossing blocked, first by transporters, now by farmers, shows clearly that the reason for protests is not economic but a political one. Shame it does not correspond to the spirit of Polish-Ukrainian partnership at all and harms both of our national interests. It is clearly Russian dirty deeds. Well, one thing good to know, that real Poles see that clearly.
I can't stay silent any longer. For the love of one's homeland, I cannot pretend that I do not see these actions that shame Poland on the Polish-Ukrainian border. I am sorry, dear Ukrainian friends. What is happening cannot be the work of my compatriots. What are the Polish farmers and carriers doing today? I don't believe they are Poles. A true Pole would never stop their neighbor fighting for freedom in the back. It's not about demands. It's about a form of protest, disgrace and shame. Sorry to the fighting Ukraine. I am sorry. Eliza Dzinkovich, Consul General of the Republic of Poland in Lviv, on Facebook.
Ми бачимо і надмірну та несправедливу.
We are now witnessing an excessive and unfair paternalization that threatens to waste common achievements, in the same way as the Ukrainian grain that unfortunately the world saw flagrantly dumped from trucks and railroad cars on Polish roads. This is the grain that our farmers and peasants cultivate with a great difficulty, despite all the hardships of Russian aggression, despite the shelling, often in fields that had to be cleared of mines, despite the threat of elevators and business being burned by missile and drone strikes. The cost of Ukrainian grain is special to us, just like that of any other product generated by our economy at this time, as it is a wartime economy. These are the enterprises whose functioning enables Ukraine to provide for the front line and preserve our independence, our freedom, and thus your freedom.
Indeed. Already today, the situation on the Ukrainian-Polish border was discussed at a meeting of the Ukrainian Military Command. This meeting once again shows how important the issue is for us. We know that Ukrainians and Poles will resolve the issue at the EU level. After all, everyone understands it is not Polish farmers protesting, really. It is the Kremlin. And this is a good sign, actually. Whatever the Kremlin protests against shall be taken as a proper thing to do. How great it would be if the European Union would have issued European bonds for, say, 100 billion euros as a start. And it looks like this is exactly what is going to happen. Bonds will be issued for investment in the defense industry, said Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas. According to her, the EU needs to develop the defense industry to a new level, as well as do a long-term contract to supply weapons to Ukraine using both European reserves and global ones. Kallas also noted that not all EU countries yet feel the threat posed by Russia.
We have to send a message of support to the Russian opposition, and at the same time we will continue watching how the war is. It's about 2 years that Putin launched this war against Ukraine, and it doesn't look being ready to stop it, by the contrary. So in both fronts, in the political one and in the military one, you have to continue our support to Ukraine and to the Russian people who want to be living in freedom.
Well, we must understand that we are in a situation of war, the head of European diplomacy emphasized. According to him and to me, there is no time for regular summits. The time has come for another dimension of politics, if you will. People need to be much more flexible, involved and precise. So far, we have many strategies, but few actions we had, he stated. Also, Borrell called for a new level of support for Ukraine. The EU hesitated on supply issues for too often. 2 years ago, Europe was ready to send helmets. Now we're transferring the F-16s, but 2 years have passed. If we had made this decision faster, perhaps the situation at the front would have been different by now, Borrell said. He stressed that the EU cannot play a geopolitical role unless it is prepared to defend itself. And Minister of Defense of Germany, Boris Pistorius, stated, while a Russian attack is not likely for now, German experts expect a period of 5 to 8 years in which this could be possible. But why wait? Ukraine can stop this now, on Ukrainian soil right here. After all, war is a destructive force, and why do you need to welcome war in the territory of NATO? So to fight it then and raise the stakes, the victim quantities, the expenses, the destruction to a new high or low, call it as you wish. And even Sweden, which is only waiting for its accession to NATO, is ready now to transfer military and financial support to Ukraine. As Swedish Defense Minister Paul Johnson said, by supporting Ukraine, we are also investing in our own security. If Russia had won this terrible battle, the war, we would have much greater security problems than we have today. He said that 15th aid package is seen as an important signal to Ukraine ahead of the anniversary of the start of this war that Swedish support will continue, and also as a signal to Russia that Sweden will not let the war-torn country down. The new military and package consists of 10 combat boats and 20 groups boats, as well as underwater weapons such as mines and torpedoes worth almost 100 million euros. The package also includes artillery ammunition compatible with Archer systems Sweden sent earlier. In addition, Robot 70 is an air defense system that is already in service with Ukraine now. Package also includes anti-tank missiles, Carl Gustav grenade launchers and soldier equipment such as hand grenades, medical equipment and medical vehicles. We are happy to see the European Union indeed uniting and understanding finally the danger of Russian attack. It is a shame that this required the annexation of part of Georgia and Ukraine, as well as 2 years of full-scale war for that. So in easy terms, use Ukraine as a spear, dear Europe, as a weapon, as we are not anything else but a weapon. We were turned into it by Putin's aggression, and the choice is for all of us, for all of Europe united. Sounds like that. There is no choice but victory. A thing good to know among many others freedoms, VPN now in Russia is illegal. Russian sites started to raise all manual instructions about how to download and use VPN services to bypass internet blocks, Otherwise, they themselves, the sites, will be banned from popularizing VPNs. A decree came into force just recently in Russia. As an example, all data about VPN, including instructions for setting up a network to access blocked resources, disappeared from the technical forum for PDA and from the corporate media Skill Factory. What once was an illusion has become a reality in Russia. If sites refuse to raise any info about VPN, like the risk being blocked and fined up to 4 million rubles. Want to try? Go to Russia and post that Russia lost almost 50,000 soldiers in Avdiivka. Then just sit and wait. You will go to prison for discrediting the armed forces of Russia. I love that. To send 50,000 soldiers into a meat grinder is no crime, but to tell about it is. Try to say anything about rapes and robberies and murderings in Bucha, you'll end up grounded in prison for 10 to 15 years for spreading fakes. You wrote something on social networks that a Russian missile killed civilians in Ukraine? Kremlin police are already on their way. You only even laid flowers at the monument to political prisoners, you'll go to the pretrial detention center. Everything that is true considered now fake in Russia today. And vice versa, there is only one truth there, Nebenzia and Lavrov's style. And the great historian Putin himself, of course. Trying to learn anything else is a terrorism, and you automatically are labeled as a foreign agent. Just as it was the case in 1934 under Stalin, in 1938 under Adolf Hitler, or in 1984, if you will, under George Orwell. Think about one thing. Only one who is absolutely terrified by truth will ban writers, and Orwell himself was recently banned in Russia. Oh my God, how much would Sir Orwell appreciate the irony? Thank you so very much for watching this episode. It was me, Henry Keane, on UATV English Studio, bringing the hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world. I hope you like what we do for you, so if you really do help us in return, like, share, subscribe, help us to deliver Ukrainian voice worldwide and to make it be heard, and let us know what you think in the comments below. We appreciate that too. So stay safe and tune for more. See you tomorrow, people.